Hey everyone, this is Toasted Gaming, and yes, that guy who keeps ranking every game ever made on every engine ever built. And I'm gonna continue until I myself turn into a source code. If you've seen my Unreal Engine 1 or Gold Source Engine ranking videos, then you know the drill. And if you haven't, well, shame on you. But don't worry, there is a whole playlist on my channel where you can catch up, binge watch, and probably develop a deeply unhealthy obsession with obscure PC shooters. You're welcome. Today we're diving into the glorious chaos of the ZEQ2 engine, also known as the Quake III engine, because that's the one that started it. Sleek, fast, moddable as hell, and somehow kept alive by both modders and maniacs well into the 2010s. Also, I decided to combine original ZEQ2 games with IO Quake III. I decided not to make separate videos for these games. You know, let's save time, let's cram them all into this one video so we can go on to the next engine. So I'll write below on the blue bar which source port the game uses. If I don't write anything there, that means it just uses regular ZEQ2. Now, before the pitchforks come out, let me explain how I ranked the games. First off, I played and evaluated each one based on quality, fun factor, graphics, legacy, and innovation. 5 categories. And yes, it's mostly based on my opinion, which means if your favorite game didn't rank as high as you wanted, cry about it. Well, I'm kidding, kind of. But I did also check user and critic reviews, just to make sure I didn't make any too crazy of it decisions. One more thing, if you want to support the channel and get 1 week early access to videos like this, consider joining my channel. Everyone who joins gets their suggestions bumped to the top of my list, and your name will show up at the end among the beautiful legends who make these videos possible. Alright, strap in, grab your BFG, and let's dive headfirst into the beautifully cursed world of ZEQ2. Starting off our list at number 34 is Turtle Arena. What if Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had no license, no budget, and no pants? This open source project had ambition. You could play split screen, fight bots, and there was even a co-op mod buried in the console, like a forgotten pizza. But the gameplay? Think Quake III, except everyone's swinging hammers in third person, and it feels like you're stuck in molasses. This one uses source port, it's not original ZEQ2. Developer made his own corrections, changes to the code, and called this new version Spearmint. There is no way I'll ever make video about Spearmint since this is the only game that it uses, so it's on this list. Props to the solo dev for building most of it alone, but even they later admitted the game kinda sucks. And if you're wondering where the turtles are, don't. They got replaced by something less copyrighted and more awkwardly naked. At 33 we've got Dark Salvation, the god kid of the ZEQ2 family. It's like someone tried to combine Painkiller, Hot Topic and a metal album cover, but forgot to include tight gameplay. You get some twisted weapons and surreal horror vibes, but the platforming is janky, the combat stiff, and the whole thing feels like it was designed by a Ouija board with trust issues. I only managed to play like 40 or 50 minutes of this cause I just couldn't take this anymore. Even for a free game it was more like suffering. I mean, there's a decent aesthetic period under the edge, but sadly this one ends up being more dark frustration than anything else. Coming in hot at 32 is Acid Arena, the Quake III mod that was actually illegally sold in some countries of Europe. It looks more like a rave party than a game. This psychedelic shooter illegally bundled Quake III assets before it was cool, and crammed its screen with so much neon and comic style chaos, your eyeballs might actually file a restraining order. To its credit, it's got tons of content. Dozens of characters, levels, and all the basic Q3 weapons. But it's all wrapped in a graphic design as my passion fever dream. It's wild, it's weird, and I mean, it's probably banned in 3 countries for sensory overload. At 31 we have Megaman Arena, and honestly, it's not that bad. problem is that it's dead. It doesn't seem like there ever was any servers, but who knows, there's bots also. It's a fan-made deathmatch game that lets you shoot plasma and dash around like a blue bomber in a Quake pit. It's fast, it's dumb fun, and it's got the Megaman vibes. Well, sort of. But don't expect deep mechanics or long sessions, it's more of a novelty. Like a YouTube poop turned into an exe file. Good for a laugh, better with friends, but probably not something you'll keep installed for a long time. At number 30 we've got Mashup Dimensions, a game that feels like someone ate every arena shooter mod ever made and then coded the resulting fever dream. You play as a music-loving girl or a reckless biker dragged into a dimension full of flying vehicles, weirdos, and narrative cutscenes written in Google translated Russian English. It's got single player, good and bad endings, and more ambition than actual balance. It's weird, it's messy. I don't think anybody ever played it, I might be one of the first people. But I actually needed a shot of vodka while playing this to understand it. Coming in at 29 is Monkeys of Doom. The game that asked, what if Quake III was made by a nudist with a cartoon fetish, and a sense of humor that peaked in 2007. Naked humans? Check. Violent apes? Check. Comic book aesthetics and blood splattering absurdity under technicolor skies? Check, check, check. It's deliberately ridiculous, aggressively unserious, and honestly kinda charming in a this should not exist, but I'm glad it does, way. Think of it as Happy Tree Friends meets Unreal Tournament, and everyone forgot their clothes. Okay, I might get some hate for this one. At number 28 we've got OpenArena, the open source clone of Quake III Arena, made for people who love arena shooters but hate paying for them. It's technically impressive, especially for a free game, and it served as a base for a ton of mods. But let's be real, it's like off-brand cereal. Same idea, but less sugar, more junk, and the mascot's just a weird polygon lady. Still, respect to the devs, it kept the Quake spirit alive for years, especially in classrooms, modding scenes, and maybe your uncle's weird Linux rig. Sliding in at 27 is Q3 Rally. And yeah, you heard that right, somebody made a racing game with a Quake 3 engine. It's like taking a chainsaw to a chess game. Technically unnecessary, but absolutely fascinating. You've got cars, tracks, some drifting that feels like it's happening on ice cubes, and weapons that go pew pew while you try not to fall off the road. It's janky, it's silly, and somehow it kind of works. Bonus points for pure ambition. Turning a twitchy FPS engine into Twisted Metal Lite, it deserves at least a slow clap. At 26 we have Game Over in Machinimation. I think that's how you say it. A free promo shooter based on a short-lived TV series you probably never even seen. Starring a heroine named Rachel, who is apparently armed and deadly. You get one single-player mission with deadly piston, slime puddles, and goofy weapons like the blaster that shoots explosive gas balls, because why not? The multiplayer mode's actually fun. I mean, at least I tried with bots. And there's also LAN support, and even a bird that spits goo on your screen, like it just came back from Taco Bell. Oh, and it's shipped with a Machinima tool, because nothing says mid-2000s like making your own action movie in a deathmatch map. At 25 we've got Smokin Guns. Quake III Arena dressed up in cowboy boots and spitting tobacco. This one's all about Wild West shootouts, revolver duels, and robbing banks like it's high noon every 5 minutes. The maps are dusty, the music slaps, and the atmosphere is genuinely great. It's got real spaghetti western vibes. Feels like playing through a Clint Eastwood western. But gameplay wise, servers are dead, mostly, and I tried playing with bots. It's a really slow game. It's also a bit stiff, and after a few rounds you'll start to wonder if maybe the tumbleweeds are winning. Still, a damn fine effort. I can see this being still fun to play with friends. Number 24 is Iron Grip Warlord. The game that said, what if tower defense in the FPS had a baby? And that baby was raised on diesel fumes and budget constraints. You defend the city from endless waves of steampunk enemies while building turrets and shooting dudes in the face. Sounds cool, right? And it is, for a while. But the jank creeps in fast. AI pathing is weird, performance is spotty, and your base dies super fast. Still, props for trying something different and for having the most Eastern European vibe on this list, probably. Coming in at 23 is Space Trader Merchant Marine, a game that proves you can use the Quake III engine to simulate the thrilling world of economic spreadsheets in space. You travel between planets, trade goods, shoot a few space criminals, and try not to go bankrupt like a crypto bro in 2022. It's part FPS, part trading sim, part fever dream. Definitely one of the weirdest uses of id Tech 3. But weird doesn't mean bad. It's actually kind of chill once you embrace the grind. Being elite dangerous, but with fewer graphics, fewer physics, and 100% more junk. At 22 we have The Wastes, a post-apocalyptic arena shooter that's basically Mad Max, if it ran on id Tech 3, and was raised by Fallout modders with a flair for leather and rust. Originally a Quake II mod, it eventually dragged itself into this engine like a gritty, blood-soaked survivor and said, yeah, this'll do. It's fast, it's stylish, and it actually looks pretty damn good considering the tech. But let's be honest, it's still niche as hell. There's no servers, nobody's playing it anymore, so I wonder if it was ever alive. Great vibes, tight gameplay, but unless you're already into car wreck aesthetics and homemade bombs, this one might feel like a stylish fever dream. At number 21 we've got ZEQ2 Lite, the Dragon Ball Z fan game that lets you fly, fire energy blasts, and recreate every Goku vs Vegeta fight you ever drew in your school notebook. The devs really nailed the look. Cel-shaded visuals, authentic animations, and the beam struggle mechanics are chef's kiss. But content-wise, it's, well, light. And that's not just part of the name of the game. It's more of a sandbox tech demo with potential than a full-blown game. Still, if you've ever screamed Kamehameha at your monitor, this is your jam. No judgment, we've all been there. But there's other Dragon Ball free game that's better than this. There's also a mod for it called Light Revolution Gold Edition, so if you ever decide to play ZEQ2, install that mod on it. You're gonna like the experience way more. At number 20 we've got Agent Under Fire, a Bond game that feels like a result of giving Pierce Brosnan's Thunderbolt a grappling hook and telling him to just vibe. It's got guns, gadgets, car chases, even jetpacks, and somehow manages to not completely fall apart. Built on a wildly modified id Tech 3 engine, this one leans more into action movie nonsense than tight FPS mechanics. It's not the best Bond game, not even best Bond game on this list, but it does have some energy, plus it's super short, so if you have nothing better to do, you love Bond, it's worth a try. Coming in at 19 is Star Trek Elite Force 2, the game that boldly went somewhere just slightly less cool than its predecessor. You're still blasting aliens with a phaser rifle, exploring space stations, and hanging out with Tuvok, but it just doesn't hit quite as hard as the first one. That said, it's polished, atmospheric, and full of that 2000s Trek charm. The environments look great, and the story is decently written, even if it's not exactly canon. Not quite great, but also not terrible. At 18 we've got Tremulous, a game that asked, what if humans and aliens waged a war in a Quake deathmatch server, but also had to build their own bases like it's StarCraft. It's a symmetrical FPS meets real-time strategy, and somehow it actually works. Aliens evolve into nightmare fuel, humans build turrets and scream when they hear footsteps, It's tense, it's sweaty, and when it clicks it's magic. It's not the prettiest game, but it paved the way for games like Natural Selection and Unvanquished. Basically, Tremulous walked so base-building aliens could run. Speaking of which, number 17 is Unvanquished. The smarter, hotter cousin of Tremulous that hits the gym and reads patch notes. It polishes everything. It has better graphics, better balance, smoother gameplay, and way fewer "why did that just explode" moments. But it carved out a space in the open source scene as that one game that feels like it could be an actual indie hit if someone gave it 10k and a Steam page. There's still servers, there's still some people playing. Also, it's free, it's underrated, and it's got aliens who can climb walls. What more do you want? At number 16, it's Medal of Honor Pacific Assault. The game where you storm Japanese islands with a squad full of NPCs that sound like they are voiced by your uncle doing his best war movie impression. It's cinematic, it's dramatic, and it really wants to be Saving Private Ryan, Iceland edition. Gameplay is a mixed bag, some missions are thrilling, others feel like you're getting stunlocked by history itself. But when it works, it hits hard. Explosions, yelling, bayonets, and some surprisingly emotional beats make this one a flawed, but respectable entry in the Medal of Honor series. Coming in at a stylish 15 is World of Padman, a game that proves not every arena shooter has to be grimdark, gunmetal, and 90% testosterone. This one's bright, colorful, and plays like Quake III got dunked in a Sunday morning cartoon and came out smiling with a paintball gun. Weapons are wacky, maps are gigantic dioramas, and everything just feels lovingly handcrafted, like a shooter made by people who genuinely like fun. It's criminally underrated, and easily one of the most charming games ever to spawn from id Tech 3. Who knew comic book aesthetics and arena chaos would blend so well? At number 14 is Star Trek Voyager, Elite Force, the game that dared to ask, what if Star Trek wasn't all diplomacy and technobabble, and instead involved vaporizing aliens with a photon shotgun? You play as part of a hazard team. Basically Starfleet's "we tried talking and it didn't work" squad. The environments are super faithful to the show, and the voice acting, even from the original cast, adds that extra nerdy cherry on top. It's tight, well paced, and even non-Trekkies can get into the action. Honestly, it's the best shooter Star Trek ever beamed into existence. Lucky number 13 is Heavy Metal F.A.K.K. Squared, a game that's like if Lara Croft, Slayer album covers, and a 6-pack of Red Bull had a sword-wielding baby. You play as Julie, a badass warrior with dual-wielded swords, guns, and an outfit that screams early 2000s puberty. The combat's fun, the levels are bizarrely imaginative, and it leans into that heavy metal magazine energy. Sci-fi, mysticism, boobs, and blood. It's stylish, weird, and rough in a lovable way. And let's be honest, if you saw this cover art as a kid, you still remember it to this day. At 12 we have Soldier of Fortune 2, the game that turned every enemy into a science experiment in dismemberment. Thanks to the infamous Ghoul 2 engine, you could shoot off limbs like it was your part-time job. Add in stealth mechanics, randomized missions, and tactical gameplay, and you've got a seriously solid shooter hiding behind all the blood and guts. It's grittier than sandpaper dipped in gunpowder, but if you like your FPS games loud, brutal, and a little bit 2002 edgelord, this one's still worth a shot. I just think that first one is better. Just outside the top 10 is Urban Terror, the Counter-Strike of id Tech 3, and honestly, it might be even better in some ways. You can write your hate in the comments now. You get tactical gameplay, slick movement, trick jumps, wall climbing, and enough maps to keep you fragging until the sun explodes. It's fast, it's free, and it still has a diehard community 2 decades later. There's still a lot of servers. Imagine Counter-Strike Source and Quake III got drunk in a bar, made questionable decisions, And 9 months later, we got Urban Terror, with a Glock in one hand and a medkit in the other. Kicking off the top 10 is Quake Live. It's basically Quake III Arena with training wheels, browser support, and a secret desire to ruin your self-esteem in ranked matches. It took the legendary arena shooter formula and made it more accessible, adding matchmaking, stat tracking, and a slightly more welcoming UI, because nothing says fun like getting railgunned by someone named XX420 Fraglord XX 5 seconds into every round. Still, it's one of the best ways to experience classic Quake multiplayer, especially if you hate modern FPS handholding and think movement skill should be a basic human right. At 9 we've got Everything or Nothing, the Bond game that said, why do first person when we have Pierce Brosnan? We want to show him off. This one's an absolute blast. Gadgets, stealth, vehicle chases, and some surprisingly decent hand-to-hand combat. The cinematic presentation still holds up, and the fact that it runs on a heavily modified ZEQ2 engine is kind of insane. Just look at the footage. It's basically a Bond movie you can play. And yes, it's better than half the actual Bond movies from 2000s. Coming in at 8 is American McGee's Alice, the game that took a beloved childhood fairy tale, dipped it in absinthe, lit it on fire, and watched it crawl through a psychological horror maze. This twisted platformer FPS hybrid has atmosphere for days, creepy visuals, moody music, and combat that feels like a fever dream. Sure, the platforming's a little clunky, but the art direction and tone are so strong, you barely care. For me it feels like Tim Burton and Clive Barker merged something together, and it turned into a game. At number 7 we've got Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, which started life as a commercial expansion and then said, screw it, we're going free to play and iconic instead. This class-based objective-driven multiplayer shooter was ahead of its time. Engineers build stuff, medics revive you, and snipers miss every shot unless they're your enemy. The teamwork feels meaningful, the pacing is intense, and the maps are legendary. If you've ever thrown a grenade, yelled "plant the dynamite!" and sprinted toward the tank like your life depended on it, this one probably lives rent-free in your head too. At number 6 is Jedi Academy, the only game where you can backflip off a wall, slice a Sith in half midair, and then force choke your buddy just for looking at you wrong. This game is peak Star Wars power fantasy. You customize your character, pick your lightsaber style, and go full space ninja across a bunch of missions that feel straight out of a Star Wars movie. It builds on Jedi Outcast foundation, adds more lightsaber stances, and somehow makes everything even more fun, even if the story sometimes feels like a straight-to-DVD spin-off. It's endlessly moddable, stylish as hell, and yes, force lighting is still the best choice. Don't even try to argue with me. Sliding in at number 5 is Jedi Outcast, the game that made us all realize that guns are for cowards, and lightsabers are the true way of the Force. Kyle Katarn returns from his beard-growing sabbatical to kick ass with a blade and a grudge. The first few levels are standard FPS fare, but once you get that saber, game on. The combat system is deep, weighty, and surprisingly tactical. You're not just mashing buttons, you're dueling, deflecting, flipping, and force pushing enemies off cliffs for science. This game vaults so Jedi Academy could run, and it still feels amazing over 20 years later. Kyle Katarn, the Star Wars universe's Chuck Norris. At number 4 is Medal of Honor Allied Assault, a game that didn't just bring World War II to your screen. It dropkicked you onto Omaha Beach with bullets flying and your squad screaming. This is the blueprint, the DNA that Call of Duty would later steal, polish, and monetize to infinity. It's cinematic, intense, and full of iconic missions that made every PC gamer in 2002 feel like they were in Saving Private Ryan. And yes, some parts are janky, Yes, the AI sometimes walks into walls, but when that artillery starts dropping, you feel it in your bones. This was the gold standard of World War II shooters, and it still hits hard today. Kicking off the top 3 is Return to Castle Wolfenstein, a game that grabbed the World War II shooter formula, spiked it with supernatural horror, and set Nazis and undead demon soldiers. What a great combo. It's slick, it's scary, and it still holds up thanks to tight gameplay. I was actually scared to play this as a kid. It has great atmospheric level design, and that perfect blend of grounded action and occult insanity. 1 minute you're sneaking through a Nazi base with a silenced pistol, then next you're blasting resurrected freaks in an underground tomb like it's Doom with swastika problem. That's how you do a reboot, right? And the birth of a new Wolfenstein era that still is great today. At number 2 is the godfather of competitive multiplayer FPS, Quake III Arena. No story, kind of no campaign, no moral ambiguity, just pure unfiltered rocket jumping, railgunning, rage-quitting deathmatch perfection. This game was built for fragging, and frag we did. Or getting destroyed by some teenager in Estonia. Quake III was, and still is, the gold standard for skill-based arena shooters. It's lightning fast, brutally fair, and endlessly moddable. If your aim sucks, it's your fault. And that's exactly how it should be. And taking the crown at number 1 is the game that launched a billion kill streaks, Call of Duty. Back in 2003, this wasn't the bloated franchise we know today. This was tight, cinematic, squad-focused World War II combat that revolutionized the genre. It said, what if you weren't the lone hero, but just one soldier in the chaos of war? And it nailed it. The AI was smart for its time, the scripting was jaw-dropping, and the intensity was unmatched. Built on a heavily modified ZEQ2 engine, Call of Duty didn't just raise the bar, it blew it up, with a well-placed grenade and screamed, "Move up!" This is the moment the modern shooter was born, and it still hits like a rifle to the chest. There were more Call of Duties after first one, actually a lot of them, that still used same ZEQ2 version that they just kept upgrading, but since starting with Call of Duty 2 they didn't call it ZEQ2 anymore, instead they called it IW engine, because they changed the code so much that there were only like bones of ZEQ2 left, and with every game less and less were left. So I decided not to include other Call of Duties. We'll see, maybe someday I'll rank every Call of Duty game so we can, you know, have fun with that list instead of putting every Call of Duty here. And that's the list. Every single game built on the glorious, chaotic, long-suffering ZEQ2 engine. And are you Quake 3? Ranked from please uninstall this to this changed gaming forever. If you enjoyed the ride through nostalgia, neck-snapping movement, naked monkeys, and Nazi zombies, go ahead and dropkick that like button, like it owes you frags. Leave a comment and tell me which rankings you loved, which ones you hated, and which ones made you scream, "Bro, what? This should have been at least top 5. I read every single one, especially the angry ones. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got more madness on the way. Unreal Engine? Done it. Gold Source? Crushed it. ZEQ2? Dominated. So what's next? I'm actually working on build engine video, so probably that's gonna be the next one, but what's next after that? Leave your suggestions below for what game engine, console generation, or unhinged ranking list you want to see next. And if you want to go extra mile and support the chaos, join the channel. You'll get videos a week early, your ideas will be top priority, and your name will be immortalized among the absolute legends who made this one possible. Seriously, thank you for watching, supporting, screaming in the comments, and just vibing with me through this madness. Until next time, stay sharp, stay weird, and remember, if your game doesn't let you rocket jump, is it even really a game?